So it is amazing to be here. I've been doing this for 30 some odd years. If you watched Anna's keynote to start this off, she had a timeline there of events in the telco and networking industry, and I feel like I was there for pretty much all of it. When she asked about who's been automating networks for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, I could literally raise my hand on 30 years. And I thought as people know me, I love to tell stories, but my first automation in networking was actually something Cisco built that I think very few people actually knew about, which was called serial line ARP, or what we called SLARP. So one of my first tasks as a network engineer for a very large bank was to deploy a bunch of routers to a bunch of sites. And it's funny, 30 years ago, I had the exact same constraints that everyone here probably has today. I had very little time. I had a crew of one, that was me, and I had a boatload of sites that needed to be deployed. And so the premise behind serial line ARP, for you networking people, would be that you could actually plug the router in, and if everything went really, really well for you, and back in those days it was rare, but it did work sometimes, it was that the circuit was set up correctly and everything else. You plug in the router, it would literally send an ARP packet, and on the far side, or the data center, you would get that packet, that ARP, and you would match the MAC address to a predefined set of config files, and it would actually TFTP a config down for that matching config down to the router, and the router would then be configured in a sense. So that was the first automation that I actually deployed a bunch of years ago. And I knew I was in the right spot this morning when I woke up because I had an email from Scott, and it was a reply to my email last night, and it was AC +1. That's all he wrote in there. And I knew I was in the right spot across the board. So I'm here to talk a little bit about Pliant, but why automation? So I think it's funny. We all put together our presentations without really seeing each other's presentations. We all talk about a lot. This was sort of an insight from Gartner. And you boil all these words down to really, networking is becoming more and more complex, and the same challenges that I had 30 years ago exist. We don't have enough people to do all the work manually. It's very complicated now, and we need automation to drive our success. And a lot's been talked about this already. There are a slew of tools across the network application development that folks can use. There's just so many that are out there. And the neat thing about this conference is you all are talking to each other about which ones work and didn't work, which ones you might want to try next. There is a big debate, right, around do we purchase off the shelf or do we build it ourselves? But there are just so many tools that are out there. And then you run into this, right? If I pick a single one tool, and it's going to be my automation tool of all automation tools, then everything, you have the hammer and nail effect, right? Everything looks like a nail because all I have is a hammer to deploy. Or you can go and actually look at how many tools or which tools should I use to actually deploy orchestration and automation. And what we've found is, and I'm going through these pretty quickly, and we're a little behind, but we had a study done by EMA. Seamus was here. I don't know if he's still here today, but he helped us out. We did a survey, and we went through a bunch of customers and a bunch of network automation folks, and we asked a number of different questions. But out of all of this, really what we got back was a number of different insights, but some of the most striking were this slide and the next slide that I have. And these may be hard to read from where you are. Scott did it, or I think Chris, you did a great job of actually producing a chart and a list of things. I didn't have the foresight to do that. But in here, what you can see on the left, the larger tool sets. If you look at the green bar, that's people who are partially successful, and if you look at the blue bar, people who are successful. About 5 to 6 tools really resonated with medium-sized organizations. And larger companies, while they had a lot larger tool sets, again, they fall in that same bucket. There were 5 or 6 core things that they picked out that really let them optimize automation and orchestration across the network. And then we look on the vendor side, when vendors are involved, or really even DIY for that part, what we saw was that what were some of the inhibitors to actually being successful, given you had 5 or 6 tools? First and foremost, people called out that technical gap from solution providers. So maybe the tool didn't do exactly what I needed it to do. It just wasn't quite in the right spot. It didn't cover enough technologies. And that was followed by really the technical debt from legacy process. I bet these two are swappable as well. I mean, what's the hardest thing to do when you come in? And I'm going to talk about Pliant in a minute and how we do some of this. But when I talk to customers and here's a shiny new thing that can automate and orchestrate everything you need to do, they go, but we have this and we have that. We have a lot of things we need to do. And they are legacy, and so there's process to be had as well. And I think somebody else did a lot of talking around that. And so, you get into where skills gap would be the other piece of this, right? So there are not enough people who understand how to operate a network in an automated fashion, and that's a barrier as well, but a reason why I think companies like Pliant are really in business. So one more history lesson, and I'll talk a little bit about Pliant, and then I'll get out of here. One of the other things we saw, we started Pliant in 2018 or 2019. First code was shipped in 2019. One of the things that we saw in the last 5 years in our journey has been folks saying, look, I can't possibly use an UI to do development. The whole premise of Pliant is a drag and drop, low code, no code UI. And they're like, it can't be complex enough. People have told me, your UI is just too slow. And I look at them kind of strangely because they'd never used the UI, but we've all had that reaction, right? We've had UIs that tend to be kind of cumbersome and slow. I don't think Pliant's is that way, but we've seen that. But sort of a journey or a timeline, right? So in 1948, Assembler came out. It was developed by IBM. In 64, then we had Hex, and you can go up. But what happens is each of these steps, what we did was we made the programming language more efficient. So you're less lines of code to get more things done. And at the same time, what you saw was you had less skilled people. I mean, you had to be a genius, really, if you're going to sit around and do assembler code all day long. You democratize the learning process. More people have access. And it makes it easier to build what you're trying to build. And so we go up the stack, right? I mean, we hit Python and Java and JavaScript in 95. And then you see the immersion of Ansible and Terraform somewhere around 2010, 2012. We can debate that. And then what we did was we just built on top of this. We took all of that knowledge and we built it into a platform that ingests APIs. It delivers those APIs back as drag and drop blocks and allows you to do the same development with less effort. And we've taken down the skill set required to build orchestration out across the network. And so Pliant really, and I only have a couple more seconds here, but we are a low-code, no-code development platform. We've tried to make it as easy as possible for as many people as possible to really build out automation. And I'll just go from there right into a little bit about the ecosystem and where we see ourselves playing. There's value in automation, right? And I describe automation as you're going to change the password on 1,000 devices. You're going to loop through that. It's pretty easy. It's pretty simple. You could do that in almost anything. Orchestration becomes bringing in the rest of my systems. Maybe I want to open a change control ticket. I want to change the passwords. I want to, if 10 don't work out of the 1,000 I changed, I want to actually go and open incident tickets. Then I want to close the change control tickets. That's what we define as orchestration. And because we support over 240 different vendors, and that grows every day because we allow our users to tell us or give us APIs to put in the product, we have the ability to go across vendors and make that orchestration really easy. And really that was the talk track for the next slide. This is just the NASCAR slide of some of the vendors. And really what we're going after is we really want to reduce dependency on skill sets that are really isolated, right? We want to be able to have our ops guys, our DevOps guys, our NetOps guys, our SecOps guys be able to build automation and orchestration to really facilitate whatever they're trying to do. We also have the capability of taking in Python and Ansible and Terraform and PowerShell and bash scripts you've written and put those into these little drag and drop blocks. So we're preserving the orchestration and automation you've already built and allowing you to expand upon it. And then it is a low code. We're hoping that low code interface, it really aids you in building out the development that you need to do. It has a built-in API gateway so you can give back, right? You can publish your own APIs without ever writing a line of code. It also has a small UI which allows you to present your automation as little tiles. So maybe you have tier 1 people who you want to click on something and just have that automation that you've built for them run. And we're really seeing that it really does reduce the amount of time it takes to start and complete a project. It enhances the chances of that project actually being completable. You know, the success rate goes up. And that's about what I have for today. So we are in the back there. Feel free to come see us. I'd love to talk more about orchestration and automation and how we do it inside of a low-code, no-code interface. Thanks.